Hello and welcome. My name is Joe Hendry, and this right here is Tom Ransom, and we are fading. we were at WCPW tonight working extremely hard, and we decided to do a quick UFC 202 recap, which totaled about 55 minutes. So we're now going to do our Bellator preview, and we're going to try and not take 55 minutes because we have lives to lead. So, without further ado, let's preview Bellator MMA. Tom, over to you.
You're throwing me into the deep end now. Okay, I think one of the main things, the main topics about Bellator 160 is obviously Benson Henderson against Patricio Pitbull. I mean, that's all. That's our main event. But that's a. If you ask me, I think that's a weird fight. I mean, everyone's saying, "Oh, it's going to be a hell of a fight," but I think it's a weird fight. Benson Henderson has been at welterweight now for something like 19 months. That's very specific. But I think it is something like 19 months. He's climatised now to being in the welterweight division. He jumped up against Brandon Thatch, and man, Brandon Thatch was a much bigger fighter than Benson Henderson. Much bigger. I think Benson jumped into that fight at late notice after losing to Donald Cerrone. Mm-hmm. He came up to fight Brandon Thatch, who needed an opponent, and he beat him up. He beat him up and then he submitted him. And that was a huge indication of what Benson Henderson could do at welterweight. He won a fight after that, and then ultimately made the jump to Bellator, where he fought for the welterweight title in Bellator and came away with a loss.
And obviously that's a tough spot to be in because there's a lot going on with the Reebok deals and things like this, and some people are choosing to go with Bellator, and in some cases, especially with merchandise, it does make sense. So that is becoming an option for guys. But when you go to Bellator, let's be honest, let's just call a spade a spade. We love all of MMA, but the UFC is the pinnacle. It is. That's where the absolute best of the best of the best are. And don't get me wrong, there are some destroyers in Bellator and other outside organisations, but they have usually eventually make their way there. Yeah.
Eddie Alvarez being one of those.
Exactly.
Held the lightweight title for...
Exactly. But when you're Benson Henderson, you think about the tear that he was on before he lost the title. Yeah. Right? Okay. Then, fair enough. Couple of losses, as you say, debuts at welterweight, dominates, gets another win. But when you go to Bellator, it's hard to put this in the right way, but the UFC is the absolute pinnacle, and you're choosing to make more of a brand, reinvent yourself in a new organisation, and then to go in on a loss. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's going to diminish your brand on a couple of levels.
That hurt him in a big way, and this is why I think this fight with Pitbull is a weird fight, because he lost the title fight, didn't win the title, and now they're putting him against a beast, but a beast who has fought at 145. They're calling this a super fight. I mean everyone is going to say, yeah, but Tom, he's dropping back down to lightweight. He's fought welterweight. He's fought a welterweight for a long time. Him dropping down to lightweight to fight a featherweight, it doesn't quite make sense to me. I know it's a big money fight, but I mean, both guys, this is the number one contendership to face Michael Chandler. Pitbull is coming in with that narrative that Chandler just knocked out his brother, knocked him out in a really nasty way. I mean, if you haven't seen that knockout, go and watch that knockout, because you could hear that for 1,000 miles. That was a nasty knockout. So they've got that narrative now of Pitbull wanting to sort of avenge his brother's KO. Why not just book that fight? Why not just go immediately to Chandler Pitbull? But they haven't. I don't want to say this, but it sort of feels like they're feeding Pitbull to Benson Henderson, and I
so
say
it's almost like to rebuild his brand, isn't it?
And I say this because that's exactly what they did with Tito Ortiz in his Bellator debut. They put him in against Alexander Shlemenko, beast in the middleweight division.
In the middleweight division.
He was the guy. He was coming in. He was dominating, and they thought, you know what is a great way to build Tito Ortiz? Let's put him against a middleweight, and let's put him against the middleweight champion. And Tito came in, beat him up, and won that fight really convincingly. And not only did he win that fight really convincingly, but in the process he destroyed, Shlemenko's brand, as this dominant, scary dude, and also he made that middleweight division look like a bit of a joke.
Yeah. So overall, was it worth it?
Yeah, and is this not what they're doing now with Henderson and Pitbull? Pitbull's a beast at 145. Why send him now to fight Benson Henderson at 155? Does that make sense to you?
Well, I've got an interesting article here.
Right.
MMA Junkie have said the reason that it's good booking is because Henderson wins, you've got the ex-UFC champ versus the Bellator champ, and there's that kind of, you can build that.
Yeah.
And that's an opportunity for Bellator to just kind of notch themselves up a little bit there, in the kind of bragging rights. And again, if Pitbull wins, as you say, it's the revenge bout, So whatever happens here, you've got a sellable fight.
Here's the thing though. Here's what I think. How the fight ends is really important in how the fight ends is going to be a really important thing. If Henderson goes in and he absolutely dominates Pitbull, he looks like a bully. Here's a guy who's fighting at welterweight. I know he's fought at lightweight for his entire career, but like I said, he's climatized now to welterweight. He comes in, he dominates Pitbull, and he looks like a bully. They go, well, of course he was going to do that because he's a bigger guy. He's got the longer reach. But on the other hand, if Pitbull comes in and dominates Henderson,
looks like a hero,
yeah, and not only that, but where does Henderson go from there?
Well,
he's lost the welterweight title. He's lost the fight against a 145er. What's Bellator going to do with him now? So that's the scary thing. If they go in,
all chips are down on Henderson now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, if they go,
the thing is, like you're saying, if he's going to be in and be the bully, if Henderson doesn't win this, then you know what I mean. But maybe it is important for the other guy to get the rub,
Why fight Pitbull? I just think he's such a homegrown Bellator star. He's been with the company for a long time. It just sort of seems like, why would Bellator then throw away
what they've built themselves?
I honestly think that they should have just put Pitbull against Chandler and then fight Henderson. Like, he should have just gone, what was it? Dan Henderson was coming in as the Pride middleweight and light heavyweight champion to the UFC. He fought Rampage first, lost, and then immediately after he fought Anderson Silva. Surely that's something that Bellator could have done as well. They had Henderson come in, challenge for the welterweight title, unsuccessful, sure, then fight for the lightweight title next. I don't think they needed a number one contendership to validate.
Okay, fair enough. Well, yeah, absolutely, 100%. But if you guys disagree or you have an alternate opinion, or if you agree, which on this channel, but feel free to comment. Well, I'm only joking. We love you, really. Please do leave your comments and stuff. We do read them. We cry ourselves to sleep. But on the odd nice one that we get, we feel great. So feel free to add any comments, and we will respond in some way.
In some way.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Okay, so the next fight, I believe, the co-main event we're looking at is Anderson versus Awad. Have I said it right?
Yes. Yeah. I think it was the co-main event, but I believe it's now Bubba Jenkins and Cara.
Okay, so what's happened there?
So I think it got demoted to the main event of the prelims. And then there was sort of fan outcry, and then Jenkins and Cara were put back on the co-main event.
Do you have any insight as to Why?
As to why?
What was the
off
relegation
the top
for?
off the top of my head, I can't remember the exact details of why it was pushed down to the main. I think it was a classic case of wanting to push the prelims. I think
Okay.
they
All right.
wanted
Well,
people
then
to-
fair enough. It's not really a prelim fight in that sense,
Yeah,
It's
it's the same thing as
polarised
Lorenz
product.
Larkin against Neil Magny.
Exactly. Yeah.
But so it's back on. I think it's fan outcry. I think it's a few other bits and pieces, but it's back. It's Cara and Jenkins is back on the co-main event. We'll talk about Anson and Adward in a little bit. Georgie versus Barber. It is a weird fight. It's a weird fight to book. Bubba Jenkins I think he's on 3 fight win streak. His last loss was obviously a few fights ago against Cara and Cara beat him with a guillotine.
Yeah.
Cara is now on I think he's lost his last couple of fights. So surely the fight that they should have booked is Jenkins challenging further up for the maybe number one contendership for the featherweight title. But it just seems that he's obsessed with getting that win back against.
It's a strange one, isn't it, to come off 2 losses to go back to this fight? But again, it's an interesting dynamic. I don't recall seeing that like in the UFC recently. That sort
but
of
this is
matchmaking. I should say matchmaking instead of booking. Really.
But I mean, it's just the way that Bellator books their fights is to get as much fan interest and money as possible. The fact that they put on, R.I.P. Kimbo Slice, but the fact that they put on Kimbo Slice versus Dada 5000.
How did they get it sanctioned?
What was going on there? I'm not going to say that I know anything about Dada 5000. I know that he was in a documentary recording his backstreet, whatever you want to call it, backyard brawling.
So
I don't know.
Backstreet's back.
But he used to be like one of Kimbo Slice's boys, and then the next thing you know, they got like Twitter beef, and then Bellator were like, let's book that straight away.
I don't know. That's fun.
Yeah,
I like stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, if you watch that fight, I know
that
was
wasn't
a bad
fun.
fight.
Yeah, that wasn't fun.
That was a bad fight.
I take it back. That wasn't fun.
It is fun. It is fun because Bellator are making those fights that maybe controversially the UFC don't have the balls to book. I don't know. In the sense that surely there should have been a super fight in the UFC by now, and that's something that fans want to see. Bellator is booking fights that fans want to see, but is it the right thing to do? I'm not sure. And one of these things, and one of those fights, is this fight with Karakhanyan and Jenkins. It's clear that the only reason this fight is happening is because Jenkins, I feel like I'm being really harsh about this, but I think, Jenkins desperately wants this back. In that, if you go and watch that first fight again, Jenkins was dominating the fight, but what he kept doing, he kept shooting for these takedowns, and Karakhanyan kept catching him in this guillotine, and Jenkins kept escaping, but he didn't learn. Instead of changing it up, he kept shooting, and ultimately he got caught in the guillotine. And maybe this is one for Jenkins. Incredible wrestler. I think he was a NCAA Division 2 champion. But this is one that you can tell that he's really emotionally invested in, and I think that will probably play its part. I think he'll win the fight. But it didn't make sense. It made sense for him to fight in a maybe a title elimination contendership, or whatever you want to call it. This was one for Bubba Jenkins. That's pretty much all I can say.
Fair enough. So moving on, what should we talk about first? Should we talk about?
Let's talk about Adward and Anson. I think that's the next fight.
Okay.
On. I don't have too much to say about this fight. This is going to be. I think this will be the fight of the card, and both of these guys are just fantastic strikers. I think what Anson will do is he'll look to keep Adwad on the outside. Adwad has got some scary knockout power, and he knocked out Will Brooks. I mean, Will Brooks is he was a lightweight champion at Bellator for a long time. I think that's his only. If you look at Will Brooks's record, he's maybe got one other loss, but I think it was a decision loss. Adwad came in, he knocked Will Brooks out, and he also knocked out Cyborg Santos as well. So he's got some scary knockout power. So what Anson should probably going to look to do is going to keep him on the outside and really keep him at bay.
Who have you got in this one?
It's a difficult one. It really is a difficult one. I think Anson might come in and steal this one, purely because he knows what kind of power that Adwad possesses. But we'll see. This is definitely the fight that people should be paying attention to.
And with that, we shall move on. So, shall we talk about AJ McKee versus Cody Walker?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, AJ McKee is a really impressive fighter. He's had maybe 4 or 5 fights in Bellator now. He's so confident. He's very aggressive. But he's got his first test. He's got his first test against Walker. I think Walker holds a record of 7 wins, 4 losses. So, but Walker's a real guy. Walker is a real guy. I think they've protected AJ so far. But this is his. See what he can do. Walker. I don't know if you've got it up there, but Walker's coming off of 2 maybe TKO wins.
Let me just double check for you.
Two TKO wins. He may have lost his last one. I'm not too sure. This is from memory. But AJ is a really, really interesting fighter. He's got all the star power in the world. And that goes obviously hand in hand with Joey Davis as well. I'll just get back to mine.
So Cody Walker's coming off a loss. JC Cottrell, that was a decision loss, but he did TKO wins over Scott Heckman and Calvin Hackney.
Yeah, I mean, so this guy's Walker is. He's going to be a test. I think AJ is going to win. I think he's going to win. Bellator are very good at protecting.
Building stars.
Yeah. Well, that's a good way of putting it, yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say protecting stars. Yeah.
What's that famous quote? You can't build stars when you can't predict the outcome,
Exactly.
But I think what? Personally, Bellator's fun to me, and it needs to be. It can't just be UFC light. It has to be a little bit different. And I think you have to give props to Bellator for the production values and stuff like that. It is a fun promotion.
They're platformed on Spike TV that obviously UFC used to be with.
Of course.
But yeah, no, absolutely. Bellator is good entertainment. They do it well.
Absolutely.
Scott Coker's gone on record saying, I'm about the entertainment.
Exactly, and that's important to have that alternative. Because the UFC does what it does to an absolute T. My only complaint about the UFC is recently I kind of get the feeling they're going back in this direction. But this is off topic. But the Ultimate Fighter, I feel, became less about the kind of drama and the personalities and more about I have a wife and children and I'm here to fight. It was just there's no story, there was nothing. It was like, I'm an athlete, I would like to win. Whereas it's so I think it looks like it's going in the other direction, but sometimes if I'm worrying that the UFC are going too far down the sporting route, which I know sounds weird, but for me, a pro wrestling guy, I like all the pizzazz, Bellator's there.
Yeah, it's a way of selling fights.
So finally, I think we'll probably finish off by covering the much anticipated debut of the NCAA champion, 4-time NCAA champion, Joey Davis, who you were telling me earlier has an outrageous win-loss record of. So go for it.
Absolutely nuts. Yeah.
I think he's 131 wins 0 losses.
That's nuts.
Yeah. I mean, that's, to me, you know, when you're first learning about fighters, it's like, when you've heard of somebody for the first time, the first thing you check is the record.
Yeah.
You know, even though that's not the most telling thing, we all can't help it. You know, I mean, it's there in green and red for you, for God's sake. It helps my simple brain process it. But usually you have a feeling whether you can count what they've done before, and sometimes you can't. You think, what would they be like in MMA? But when you think about someone that is that good as an athlete, they can go 131 times and getting the job done without...
It's nuts.
Yeah. So
I think he's the first. What was the fact? He's the first ever NCAA Division II wrestler to go undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
He's the first one to do it.
Right.
That's in itself. That's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
That's nuts. So, and also he's training with AJ McKee as well.
Mm-hmm.
They've been training together for a long time now. So obviously he's training with a guy who.
Can I just ask a weird question?
Yeah.
Right. If he's got 131 wins and 0 losses in Division 2, Division 1?
Yeah. I mean, he
How does that work?
I think you're dragging me into
Uncharted territory.
Yeah, I'm not.
Man,
I'm not
I
the
hate,
biggest,
you know, even
not
I
the
found a way to criticise someone that won 131
Yeah,
times.
exactly.
You know,
Did you see the fear in my eyes as you were starting to talk about wrestling?
yeah. But I mean, I remember it was the same thing with Shane Carwin when Shane Carwin fought Brock Lesnar, because you know, Brock Lesnar is a NCAA Division 1 champion, and Shane Carwin was Division 2. You know, so which still fantastic wrestler, but that was a talking point. You know, so but anyway, you know, just a thought. But I'd 131 wins, 0 losses. I think in my mind, my money would be on him. The guy is a winner. You know,
well, and
some people are just winners.
He's coming in against a guy who he's only got. I think he's had one professional fight. I watched that fight yesterday in preparation for this chat, and bless his heart, it's a decent fight. But you can see the serious lack of experience in that fight. He finished. I think it was a TKO finish. But it was pretty scrappy. Stand-up fighter. All you need to know is that, you know, with 131 wins in wrestling, that Davis is going to take this guy down. He's going to punish him on the ground. And I honestly predict that this is going to go to a TKO victory in the first round.
I mean, even if Davis was a kind of average striker, you kind of have to think in this situation he's going to have it covered with the grappling. I mean, you can never say never. I mean, but this feels like they're, as we said, building a style.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, what's his name? Kattar is going to. This is MMA, like. You know, he could throw a wild punch where he closes his eyes, grips his teeth, and just throws it and he catches him. You don't know, and that's going to be one of the exciting things about this fight is Keith Cuttrain's unpredictability. We know so much about Joey Davis, but we really don't know anything about Keith Cuttrain, and you know that's what makes MMA exciting when you get these guys like Mike Platinum Perry coming in against someone of limb stature, just beating him up like the way he did, and that's the exciting thing, you know, to see these unknown guys who are put up to slaughter for these guys. Like, you know, the classic one was when Forrest Griffin was sacrificed to Shogun Rua, sacrificed to him, but you know he won that fight. He submitted. You know, obviously Rua had a lot of ring rust. But, you know, Forrest Griffin, you know, really fought a great fight and then submitted him. And is this
the one, you know, the one that always gets to me, don't you?
Go on.
You guess. The one that always gets to me. The one that I just think, damn, it just...
No,
it's Chael Sonnen and Anderson Silva.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Ah.
Yeah. He, that was a weird fight. That was a weird fight. It was a great fight. It was a weird
devastated about that. Anyway,
They're going to be.
I digress. Yeah, you know, you had to make about UFC. Didn't you? You had to just make about UFC. So as you were saying, sacrifice to Shogun Hua, but
Yeah.
you know, and Cara in your training as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, Forrest Griffin was given no chance at all. You know, Shogun Hua was an absolute beast in pride. You know, they were throwing Forrest Griffin under the bus, and this is exactly what they're doing with Keith Kattar as well. Davis will win. But it's nice to think that he could.
It's nice to pretend.
Yeah, it's nice to pretend.
That's to me. Yeah. We can't sit here in a premiere and be big-headed like that at 1 a.m. So guys, we hope you've enjoyed this video. As you can see, Bellator MMA 160 is absolutely worth checking out this Friday. We really enjoy it as a kind of alternative to the UFC. We like seeing what Scott Coker does with it, and you know, there's some very, very intriguing, interesting things going on, and we're excited to see what happens. We hope you are too, and please let us know in the comments what you think is going to happen. And yeah, thanks very much for checking out our first Bellator preview video, which we have done because it was specifically requested by you guys, and we went out and found out that there was another promotion outside of the UFC, so that's why we did this. But anyway, it's late. It's so late. I need to drive 3 hours home, and yeah, so make sure you follow us on Twitter. They'll come up either here, or here, who knows. And make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel as well and follow along with all the great content that we have planned for you.